Hello, welcome to the course PH6B13E Computational Physics. The contents of today's lecture is taken from Core Python Programming by R. Nagesh Rao. We'll continue to discuss topic from Module 1, Introduction to Python Programming. We are in the process of getting familiarized with instructions in Python. Last class we have seen how to take input data into a program using the input statement. The default data type there was a string. You can always convert the data into appropriate type after inputting it, or while inputting itself you can set the data type of your choice. Now if you want to display data on screen, or if you want to display a message on screen, then you have to use an output statement. Here the keyword is print. So suppose you want to display a message hello on your screen, you say print bracket hello. Hello is a text. Always texts are written either inside a single quotation mark or a double quotation mark as shown here. So print bracket inside quotation mark, type your message. This is for text. On the other hand, if you want to show a variable, suppose x equal to 10, and you want to display the value of x on your screen, just say print x. Here x is a variable, so you don't type it inside the quotation mark. So when you say print x, the value of the variable will be displayed on the screen. On the other hand, if you write x inside the quotation mark, then Python will treat it as a text, so x will be printed on the screen. When it comes to print statement, there is some difference between the old version and new version of Python. Old version is version 2 and the earlier ones, and the new version is version 3. So in version 3 you need to have a bracket for print statement, but in the old version the bracket is not necessary. So in the latest version, if you say print hello without the bracket, it will throw you an error, so keep that in mind. Let's do some more examples with the print statement. But always remember, whenever you say print, it is going to start printing in a new line. Suppose I have two variables, x equal to 10, y equal to 5. When I say print x, the value of x will be printed in one line. When I say print y, in the next line, the value of y will be printed. If I want to print the value of two variables in the same line, then I can use a comma. So when I type print x comma y, the value of x will be printed first, then there will be a space followed by the value of y. See here, both the values are printed on the same line. So to create a space between two variables, you need to use a comma. You cannot use a space inside the print statement, because space is not acceptable for the output statement. When you type print x space y, the traceback will give you an error. Same way, if you write print xy, you will get an error. And what's the reason? For Python, x, y, xy, all three are variables, different variables. For x and y, the values are defined, but for xy, the value is not defined. So when you simply say print xy, the traceback will give you an error, xy is not defined. Okay. So if you want to print multiple variables in a single line, please use a comma. Now you can also combine text and variables inside the same print statement. How do we do that? Suppose you have two variables, x equal to 10, y equal to 5, and you want to say sum of 10 and 5 is 50, right? So here 10 is the value of variable x and 5 is the value of variable y, and 15 is the value of x plus y. So how do we print this? You can say print first part sum of, this is a text, right? So you print it inside the quotation mark followed by comma. Then you have variable x. X is a variable, so you don't put any quotation mark. Once again comma, and is a text that is inside quotation mark, comma. Y is a variable, no quotation mark. Finally is a text that is inside quotation mark, comma, then the result x plus y. So whenever you put a comma, a space will be introduced during the display message, when the message is displayed. Okay. So here sum of is the text, then there is space, then the value of variable x followed by text and value of variable y followed by text is space final result. On the other hand, if you print x and y inside the quotation mark, what happens? Let's see, print quotation mark sum of x and y is comma x plus y. So remember, whatever type inside the quotation mark is a string. So here x will be printed as it is. The value doesn't come because for Python x is just a text. Okay. So this will be printed as sum of x and y is x plus y is a variable. So its value will be printed here, that is 50. So always remember, whenever you want to display text, type it inside the quotation mark. When you want to type the value of a variable, then don't use a quotation mark. And if you want to print something onto the next line, you can use the new line command, which is \n. Similarly, if you want to introduce a tab space, horizontal tab space between two strings, then you can use \t. Similarly, \v for vertical tab space. Let's see some of the examples. I'm going to define a string x equal to I am an. So this is a text which is typed inside a quotation mark, which means this is a string. On the other hand, if you simply say x equal to I am an without quotation mark, then Python will give you an error because string has to have a quotation mark associated with it. And the next string y equal to Indian. Once again, this is typed inside a quotation mark. Now if I write print x comma y, the first string x will be printed first, I am an. There is a comma which will introduce a space, then the second string Indian. On the other hand, if I say print x plus y, here plus is not a mathematical operator, this is now a string operator. It basically combines the strings x and y. So I get the result, I am an Indian. Remember, since there is no comma, there is no space between these two strings, so an Indian is typed as a single word. Now I can use the new line command. For example, if I say print x comma \n comma y. Remember, \n is a string operator, so you put it inside a quotation mark. This is like a text operator. This is not a variable, so you put it inside the quotation mark. So how does it get displayed? First string x, I am an, then there is a new line command, so Python will go to the next line. After new line command there is a comma, so Python will leave a space there, then the second string Indian will be typed. So many times students make a mistake when this is asked in the exam, they write Indian without space here. Remember, whenever there is comma, a space will be introduced. Same way, if you want to introduce a horizontal tab space between these two strings, you just type print x comma \t comma y. Once again, this is typed within the quotation mark, then you get an output like this. Or if you want, you can use the new line command inside a text itself. For example, when you say print I am an, then \n Indian. Now what happens? I am an will be typed. This is the text. Moment Python sees \n, it goes to the next line, and there is a space, so that space will be left, then Indian will be typed. If you don't want a space before Indian, then what you do? You type something like this, print I am an \n Indian. So here, after the new line command, there is no space. So when the second string gets printed on the screen, there is no space before that. I have an assignment for you. Suppose if I say print I am an space, then new line command \n Indian. What will be the output? So you can check it on your Python platform. Just take open the Python window, type this statement, hit enter, and see what is the output. As I said before in the earlier class, the variable names and the commands or keywords are case sensitive. If I define a variable mark with small letter m as 10, so the value of the variable mark is 10. And if I say print mark, here I am using capital M. So for Python, mark with small m and mark with capital M, these two are completely different variables. For mark with small m, the value is defined, but for mark with capital M, value is undefined. So when I say print mark, this will show me an error that this mark is not defined. Same way, when I use print statement instead of small p, if I use a capital P, once again I'll get an error, because for Python, print with small p and print with capital P, these are completely different instructions. Print with small p is recognized by Python. On the other hand, print with capital P is not recognized by Python. So this is particularly important if you are typing Python programs in either Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, etc. Sometimes when you want to illustrate something, you want to take a class or you want to share a code. Oftentimes you write your Python code in a Word file and share it with others. In Word, by default, whenever you start a new line, the first character becomes capital letter, right? That is a default setting in Python. So when you type Python programs in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, after you type your entire program, you need to proofread and make sure that all the keywords and the variable names are spelled correctly. Moving over to the data types in Python, data types are pretty much common in most of the programming languages. You have integer data, float data, and double data. These are the most common ones. Integers are whole numbers. On the other hand, float and double are numbers with decimals. Integers usually are 2 or 4 byte numbers. As you know, 8 bits constitute a byte. So 2 byte corresponds to 16 bits and 4 bytes correspond to 32 bits. And what's the meaning of a 32-bit integer number? The largest number that can be represented by a 4-byte integer is 2 to the power 31 minus 1. Similarly, float is a 4-byte number, which means it has 32 bits. So the largest representable number there is once again 2 to the power 31 minus 1, and float has 6 decimal points. Double has 8 bytes, which means the largest representable number is 2 to the power 63 minus 1. So float double has higher computational capability compared to float or integer, and it has 14 decimal points. And this is not a strict demarcation. The number of decimal points could vary from programming platform to programming platform, similarly from the operating system to operating system, and also it depends on the microprocessor specifications. Maybe in a 64-bit processor you can have more decimal points compared to a 32-bit processor. So you can check that in your system what is the default number of decimal points. So how do we do that? You can choose an infinite series number. For example, take the value of pi, 22 divided by 7. This is an infinite series, 3.142857142.857, right? This is a never-ending series. Now you can do this calculation in your Python platform in your computer and see how many decimal points are displayed. Okay, so when I did it in my computer, I use a 64-bit processor and I have Python version 3. So I type x equal to 22 by 7. When I did print x, this is the result I got. Let's count how many number of decimal points are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 is the number of decimal points, default number of decimal points. And when I say type X, it shows a float. So float is the default data type which has 15 decimal points. It may be the same in your computer, maybe it is different. Okay. Now, in Python, since Python is a superior programming language, when it comes to data type, there is certain advantage because the data type selection is automatic. Python determines the type of data from the value of the variable itself. So if I type x equal to 10, since 10 is an integer, the type of the variable x is defined as integer here. Similarly, if I type x equal to 10.0, 10.0 is float, so by default the data type of x becomes float. If I say x equal to 10 within quotation mark, this is a string, so x becomes a string. Similarly, if I define x equal to 10 plus 5j, so this is a complex number. So the way I give the value, the data type is determined automatically by Python. In complex, instead of I, Python uses the notation j. So 10 is the real part, 5 is the imaginary part. When it comes to typecasting, there is something fundamentally different between the new version and the old version. In new version, things are more straightforward and intuitive. In old version, you have to be a bit careful. So I illustrate this with an example. Suppose if I use Python version 3, the new version, if I say x equal to 1, y equal to 2, when I ask print x divided by y, so here x is an integer, y is an integer, but the result of this division is a float, right? So Python will show it as 0.5. When it comes to the old version, the thumb rule is that if you have two variables and you want to perform a binary operation, if both the variables are integers, then your result will be an integer. If at least one of the variables is a float, then your result will be a float. This is the thumb rule. So when I say x equal to 1, y equal to 2, print x by y, here Python, when it look at the variables, both the variables are integers, so Python knows that the answer has to be an integer. The actual answer is 0.5, but Python takes only the integer value, the whole number, which is 0. So Python gives you the result 0. So even though you are expecting the answer 0.5, you are getting the answer 0. So this is an issue with strict typecasting in the old version of Python. Now, how do you overcome this issue? As I said, thumb rule, if at least one of the numbers is a float, then your answer will be float. So you can convert either x or y into a float, then do the same operation. So I can do print float x divided by y. So when I say float x, x which was originally an integer now becomes a float. Same way you can do print x divided by float y. In both cases I will get the float answer 0.5. Now if you have followed this logic, I have an assignment for you. When I say print float x divided by y, what will be the answer? I'll give you a clue here. X by y will be calculated first, that will be converted into a float, then you get the print answer. Okay, so we'll do this as an assignment. Now, one of the advantages with Python is that during any point in your program, you can change the data type. Suppose the variable x was originally a float, you want to convert it to an integer, simply type x equal to index. Or you have an integer x, you want to convert it into float, you just type x equal to float x. Similarly, an integer or a float you can convert into a string by typing x equal to string x. So the initial data type will be determined automatically by Python using the value of the variable, and after that you can change the data type any number of times. The other data type in Python is complex, as I said earlier. Then let's see how we create a complex number. So complex number has two components, the real component and the imaginary component. And the keyword to create a complex number is complex, and this function has two inputs. One is the real part and one is the imaginary part. If I say x equal to 10, y equal to 5, when I say print complex x comma y, the first part will be taken, the first variable will be taken as the real part, which is 10, plus the second part is the imaginary part, which is 5j. So you get the result 10 plus 5j. On the other hand, if I type print complex x, so I have only the first number, which is the real number. There is no imaginary number here, so the default imaginary number is going to be 0. So your answer is going to be 10 plus 0j. Now I have a question for you. If I say print complex y, what will be the answer? Now I know what you are going to think now. You know that x is the first number, so that becomes the real part. Y is the second number, that becomes the imaginary part. So I have only y here. So real part is 0, imaginary part is 5j, so the answer is 0 plus 5j. Right. But you may be surprised to see the actual answer. The actual answer is 5 plus 0j, not 0 plus 5j. And what's the reason? The reason is that for Python it doesn't make any difference between x and y. For Python the logic is very simple. The complex will have two numbers. The first number is the real part and the second number is the imaginary part. Right. So when I say complex x, it has only one number. So one number, that becomes the real part. Now it doesn't matter that one number is x or y. Whatever is the number, that will be treated as the real part. So when I write complex x, x will be treated as the real part, you get 10 plus 0j. When I say complex y, only one number is there, that number will be treated as the real part, you get 5 plus 0j. The next data type is string. I'm sure most of you are familiar with string data type. This is any collection of alphabets, digits, special characters and white space. Any quantity assigned within single or double quotation marks, or any undeclared quantity received via input statement. We have seen that the default data type in input statement is a string. So you define string within a single or double quotation mark. So I say x equal to quotation mark Python. If you don't put this quotation mark, Python will give you an error message. Similarly, another string y equal to program inside quotation mark. Now if I say print x comma y, it will show Python space program. On the other hand, if I say print x plus y, there is no space, so Python program will be displayed as a single sentence, a single word, sorry. Now if I say print 3 into x, here the star is not a mathematical operator, this is a string operator. It types the string x 3 times, and remember there is no space between the strings, so Python will be typed thrice without any space between them. I can illustrate the working of string operator with some more examples. For example, if I say x equal to 3.5, and what is the data type? This is a float because it has a decimal point, right? Now when I say print 2 into x, this is a mathematical operation. 2 into 3.5 is 7. Since x is a float, your answer is going to be a float, so this is 7.0. On the other hand, if I define x inside a quotation mark, then this is going to be a string now. It is no more a float. Now when I type the same statement, print 2 into x, now the star is no more a mathematical operator. This is a string operator, and what's the meaning of this? The string x will be typed twice without any space between them. So your answer is going to be 3.5, no space, 3.5. You can access the individual characters of a string using its index. So just like arrays in C or C++, a string in Python has index. And the most important thing to remember here is that the index starts with 0, not 1. So if I define a variable x equal to Indian, so this is a string now, the first character I has an index 0. So actually you say I is the 0th character. N is the first character, D is the second character, so on and so forth. Now you can access each character using its index. Now how do I do that? Suppose I want to access the first character in this string. So I say print x square bracket 0. So this will give me the 0th character, which is I. Similarly, if I say print x2, it will give me the second character, which is D. Now if I want to access the last character, I know this is the 5th character, so I say print x5. On the other hand, if I have a long string and I don't have time to count the number of characters, and still if I want to access the last character, you just say print x square bracket -1. So by default, it will go to the last character and print that character. So x of 0 yields me the first character, x of -1 yields me the last character. Even though you are able to access each character using the index, you cannot change any of these characters. That's why we say string is immutable. You cannot change the content of a string. For example, if I take the string x equal to Indian, I know that 0th character is I. If I want to change this to some other character, say H, instead of I want H here. And if I type x of 0 equal to H, the stack trace will give me an error because the characters of a string, you cannot change it. But you can always print a section of a string. This is known as slicing. So slicing is called extracting a part of the string. Suppose I want to print only the first 3 characters of this string Indian. So what do? I say print x square bracket 0:3 square bracket close. Now what's the meaning of this? The first number is the starting character. So when I say 0, I start at 0th character. The second number indicates the ending character. So when I type 3, the ending character is not 3, this is 3 minus 1. So I will start from 0th character and I end on 3 minus 1, which is the second character. So the output is going to be IND. Let's do one more example. Print x 1:5. So 1 is the starting character, 5 minus 1, 4 is the ending character. So you go all the way from the first character N to the 4th character A. So the result is going to be NDIA. One more example, print x 2:3. Starting character is 2, ending character is 3 minus 1, 2. So you start on the character D, end on the character D. Basically your output is going to be a single character, which is D. If I say print x 2 : nothing here. So if you don't type anything in the second place, by default your ending character is going to be the last character. So it starts on the second character, which is D, and goes all the way to the ending character. So you have DIAN. Same way, if you say print x nothing in the first place, 4. So if you don't type anything in the first place, then by default that is taken as the 0th character. So it will start on the 0th character and end on 4 minus 1, which is the 3rd character. So INDI. Now if I say print x 2:2, what will be the output? So starting character is 2, ending character is 2 minus 1, which is 1. So always remember the ending character index should be greater than the starting character index. In other words, slicing happens only in the forward direction, not the other way. So here this is a meaningless statement, so Python gives you a nil result. Basically it doesn't type anything. There is no error, it just shows you a blank screen because this is a meaningless instruction for Python. So this is how you extract a part of the string using the indices. Now if you want to print, this is a core Python book where core Python is inside quotation mark. Now how you do that? Now most of you may be thinking this is quite straightforward. You just say print, say bracket, quotation mark, this is a core Python book where core Python is also inside quotation mark, right? Because the entire sentence is a text that has to be inside a quotation mark. Then you have a quotation mark inside that quotation mark. This should work. That's what you may be thinking. But for Python, this is quite confusing because moment Python sees a quotation mark, it knows that what is going to follow is a text, but in the middle it encounters one more quotation mark. So Python gets confused and it will throw you an error message. Now how do you get rid of that? Whenever you want to type a quotation mark inside a quotation mark, the outer quotation mark you make a triple quote. So you say print triple quote, this is a quote core Python unquote book, and you close it with another triple quotation mark. So here now Python knows that this entire thing is a text and there is a quotation mark as part of the text. There is no confusion. So your display message is going to be this is a core Python book. There is one more use with a triple quotation mark. Suppose you want to print something in multiple lines. Then you can use a triple quotation mark. So you say print triple quote, this is a core Python book where this is typed on 3 different lines. So you get the answer in the same manner. This is a core Python book on 3 different lines. So these are the 2 uses of triple quotation mark. First, if you want to type a quotation mark inside a quotation mark, you can use it. Second, if you want to print something on multiple lines with a lot of spaces in between, there also you can use a triple quotation mark. So that's for today. In the next class, we will talk about 2 important components of Python. One is the operators and the other one is the functions. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.